I'm just raising my voice to tell all of you that in 5 minutes we will start a new session here on the Blue Talk stage, talking about the oceans, climate change, and philanthropy, and how we are going to fund everything we need to do as we are moving forward. So please stay, or please join us for the next session. Welcome, everybody, to the Blue Talks scene, where we are going to have a U-Arctic session on philanthropy and the ocean. U-Arctic, for those of you who do not know them, it's a network of about 200 universities, research institutions, organizations, and colleges that are interested in education or research in or about the North. Today, we have 4 very interesting participants, and the previous session has set the scene for us. Temperatures are rising, climate consequences are felt everywhere, even here, even in the maritime industry. The world is not on track on reducing the CO2 emissions, international funding for research on climate and climate innovation is not anywhere near sufficient, and there is no plan B. So in this panel, we will explore the funding gap through the lens of two extraordinary research projects. What can we expect from public sources in the years ahead? What's the role of commercial funding? And the final question, can and should philanthropists and private money come in and fill the gap? So before we kind of dive in, I need to make a disclaimer. I know all these four people coming onto the stage, and I'll come back to how eventually. So first, let me introduce Professor John Moore. You just heard him in the previous session. John is one of the most cited scientists in the world. He's been a member of 6 Antarctic, 5 Greenlandic, and 20 Svalbard science exhibitions. Today, he is here to talk about a question he asked himself back in 2018. He wondered, is it possible to delay the global sea level rise by delaying the melting of a few specific glaciers in Greenland and in Antarctica? And this question turned into the Seabed Anchored Curtain project. And back to the disclaimer, I do have the honor of working with John on this project. But now the floor is yours, John. Take it away.
Thank you. Yep, so I'll explain a little bit about this. But first, this is what we're talking about. This is Thwaites Glacier, not the glacier. This is the icebergs that come from Thwaites Glacier, and there's a ship for some scale. This is a very difficult part of the world to work in, very challenging. But nevertheless, people go here and conduct research. It is not beyond the power of human ingenuity to work in these conditions. So you saw a lot of icebergs there. Does this represent the doom of the ice sheets? You started to get articles written that use words like unavoidable and disintegration. So yes, large parts of the ice sheets are doomed unless we do something. It's not about conserving something by keeping your hands off it. It's about getting everyone's hands on, otherwise they're going to go away. And why they're going away? It's because, as it shows here, they don't really care about greenhouse gas concentrations anymore. They're done. That control knob is not connected anymore. Very much like a guy who's got a lung cancer diagnosis and decides then to stop smoking. It's too late for that. We need to think about other ways that we can support these ice sheets as well. Something that a lot of people have talked about is this concept of solar geoengineering, mimicking the action of a volcanic eruption to cool down the planet. Unfortunately, that's not the kind of thing that can save ice sheets, because most of the energy over the last 200 years has gone into the oceans. You've got an enormous bath of warm water now. And simply stopping that from penetrating, like the guy wearing a fur coat and putting a parasol, even during the night, it's not going to work at all. He's still going to be too hot. So the guy in the fur coat is the ice sheets now. So what happens to the ice sheets? The reason why an idea might work is because these things are flowing through narrow channels in the purple and red colors here. And so, in a sense, these outflows take all of the snow that falls on the surface and channels them through these outlet glaciers. So, in a sense, if you can put the plug in to these bathtub, you can avoid that ice going into the oceans. And the kinds of costs that we're talking about, we didn't really put numbers in the last talk, but it's estimated about 700 billion per year per meter of sea level rise. And in West Antarctica, this is Thwaites Glacier over here. You've got more than 3 meters of sea level rise expected, and in Greenland, about another 2 meters likely to be destabilized. And why are they unstable? It's because as you go away from the coast inland, the bedrock gets deeper and deeper. And that's not a stable condition for the ice to be in. It's like a climber who's hanging on by his fingertips. And we don't know how good Thwaites Glacier is as a climber. If it just lets go of some of these small little irregularities, it can unzip very quickly inland, and sea level can rise sharply. So the idea is simply to mimic the effects of these plastic curtains that you see inside cold rooms that keep the cold air inside the cold room and not warming up the rest of the planet. So if we drew a cross-section through the middle of Thwaites Glacier, see the bedrock over here, this is the ice on the land, and there's an ice shelf floating. And you've got warm water at the bottom because it's salty, cold fresh water at the top. And if we ran a model with what's happening over time, the ice is very rapidly retreating down here. But if you block this warm water, this water becomes very cold and it doesn't melt so fast. And the ice can re-advance because it's going back to the support that it used to have when it was a bit thicker. So this was our idea, with not a solid barrier, but a curtain anchored to the foundation and resting or floating in the water, resisting the forces from the density and the currents. And it's flexible, so icebergs push it out of the way when they go past. So it's not supplying any physical force, it's just making the glacier colder and therefore melting less and therefore thicker. So I did some cost-benefit analysis of how much you would save by building a curtain. Now, if we limited the global warming to 1.5 degrees, and we built a curtain 50 years from now, we would save about $14 trillion in flood costs around the world. If, on the other hand, we were unsuccessful in our efforts to limit temperatures, and we instead got 4 degrees by 2100, it would reduce the effectiveness. We'd only save $5 trillion. And fundamentally, this is because the warmer it is and the more floods that happen, the less globally reliable are the coastal defenses. It's like having a pane of glass. You hit it once, it shatters a large area, so it impacts a lot more. But if you've broken that window into lots of pieces and you hit it with a hammer, you're only breaking the pieces smaller and smaller. So the idea is not to start at Thwaites. That's a really challenging place, but to kind of climb a ladder of difficulty. At the moment, we're just down here. We need to engineer this carefully, and we would build up to bigger environments, learning as we go, or finding red flags not to. Interestingly, we always thought that Jakobshavn in Greenland could be a place that might benefit, but it looks to be the most unstoppable glacier on the planet. There's nothing we can do to save the Jakobshavn glacier, Cermak-Kuliak. But of course, if the West Antarctic ice sheet starts to disappear, then Jakobshavn won't be the most unstoppable glacier anymore. So yes, it's a super challenging environment to work in. We think it would require a specially built fleet of ships, probably 5 icebreakers, 10 ice-strengthened support vessels to work in this environment, take a decade to build. It would cost of the order of $100 billion. It would be the largest civil engineering feat humanity has ever attempted. But, as I said, it would save perhaps $10 trillion in comparison. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, John. And that last number should be of great interest to everybody in these exhibition areas, because this is what is going to cost you in coastal protection and changing of harbor structure, for instance. But to the next speaker, you will be back on stage after Nina, John. The next speaker is Nina Jensen. She has been a household name in Norway since she became the Secretary General of the WWF in Norway in 2012. She is known as an uncompromising advocate for nature in general and oceans in particular. She is here as the Rev-Ocean CEO. And the Rev-Ocean project was started when Kjell Inge Røkke signed the Giving Pledge in 2017, promising to donate more than 50% of his fortune to philanthropic causes. And back to my disclaimer, Kjell Inge Røkke was also my boss when I was working in my previous jobs. But today, Nina will inspire us, I know, and she will share the tale of Rev-Ocean. Maybe she will say something about the patience needed while you are waiting for a ship, and the benefits and the challenges of philanthropy. The floor is yours, Nina.
Thank you so much, Marianne. It's a great pleasure to be here, and of course to talk a little bit about the role philanthropy can play in hopefully saving the ocean. But as many of you know, is this working? Do you have my presentation? That's not my presentation.
Normally we encountered problems that is very hard to
No? Okay. Then I'll speak without a presentation. How about that? So, as Marianne said, the Rev-Ocean initiative was started back in 2017 by myself and Mr. Kjell Inge Røkke. Kjell Inge is a Norwegian industrialist and now come philanthropist, and we're both dedicated to finding solutions to solve major ocean problems. And of course, it's always important to start with the reason why. Why is this important? And basically, the ocean provides us with everything that we need to have a good life. That's where we all came from, and the ocean provides us with the oxygen that we breathe. It regulates our climate, it transports our goods, and it's also a huge source, of course, of food, inspiration, and future materials. But at the same time, the ocean is also in serious trouble. Only in our lifetime, over the past 40 years, we've lost more than 40% of life in the ocean. And the situation is escalating as a result of pollution, predominantly now plastic pollution, climate change, and overfishing. So unless we do something, the mere system that we're all relying on to have a future on this planet will be destroyed. So as we see world leaders not really stepping up to the game, and as we're seeing funding being rolled back from scientific efforts, it's increasingly important to have philanthropists come on the stage. So that's why it's a great privilege to be working on the Rev-Ocean initiative together with Kjell Inge Røkke to try and mitigate this. And what we're doing at the moment is that we're building the world's largest research and expedition vessel. In many ways, it's a little bit like James Bond meets science. This is really a state-of-the-art vessel, close to 200 meters, and it is jam-packed with all the state-of-the-art equipment that you could possibly desire and want. So when we started up the project, we reached out to the entire scientific community and said, what kind of equipment would you need on board a vessel like this to make a real difference? And then we packed that entire list into the ship that we are currently building. And yes, Marianne, it does require a little bit of patience. By the time the ship will launch in 2027, it will have been 10 years in the making. But big things take time, and they do take patience, but we are not afraid of sticking it through. So on the ship, we have, as a few examples, a submarine that can go down to 2,300 meters with 3 people on board. We have an ROV that can take samples and live stream up to the surface from 6,000 meters. We have, of course, all the basic sampling and measuring equipment that a traditional research vessel would have. And we will be using the ship as a matchmaking platform to bring scientists together with decision makers, together with philanthropists, to make sure that these solutions are scaled. Now, currently, I believe less than 1% of global philanthropy is going towards ocean-related causes. And of course, this is a major problem if you consider the funding needs that will be fundamental to solve ocean problems going forward. So one of our hopes with this vessel is that we'll also be able to inspire future generations and the existing generations to put more money into ocean conservation and to fund the actual solutions that are out there. So our ship, as it sails around the world, will also be used as a showcasing platform for the different solutions that exist around the world and the creative and innovative projects like the one that you've just been presented to really make sure that we're turning our words into action and not just being on stage at different conferences talking about it. Because ultimately, that's what it's all about. We could, of course, be doing science 365 days of the year and not really contribute to anything. You know, the knowledge really has to be put to good use, and it has to be turned into very concrete actions. And that is what this initiative is all about. So the ship can, at any given time, hold up to 106 people, and these people will be invited to come on board the vessel for free. And of course, that's a pretty unique feature of a vessel of this sort. But to be able to secure the long-term operation of it, will also be chartering the vessel out 1/3 of the time to so-called high net worth individuals. So people with a lot of money, but also with a lot of power and a lot of influence. And the goal of this is twofold, I would say. It's both to secure the long-term operation of the vessel and the projects on board, but it's also to inspire those that are in a real position of power and influence to understand what is happening in the ocean, to care about it, and to put their money where their mouth is. So basically, invest more in the actual solutions that exist out there. Currently, despite the ocean's importance, less than 10% of the ocean has been explored. So we know literally nothing about what is going on. But this also means that there's a whole ocean out there just waiting to be discovered, explored, and fixed. The ocean, we believe, can hold solutions to many of the problems that we're facing, whether it's increasing transportation of our goods, whether it's future energy sources and fuel, whether it's materials, whether it's food, whether it's medicine, and all the other land-based challenges that we as humans are facing. But to be able to secure that, we really need to further develop the solutions and also scale them in the long term. How much time have I got? Yeah. It's kind of hard speaking without my slides. I'm trying to keep a track of everything I was supposed to say. But a few additional things that we're doing in addition to the vessel. We have also launched what we call the Ocean Data Platform through a project, our sister organization, Hub Ocean, because it's not just about gathering new knowledge, it's also about putting the knowledge that we already have to good use. there's a lot of data out there, but it's sitting in isolated databases or in individual scientific reports. And what we want to do through HubOcean is, of course, to put all of this data together in meaningful analysis and make it available to key decision makers worldwide to make sure that they're making the right decisions based on what the data is showing us, rather than working in the dark. So this is open access, available to all, so I recommend you to look into what HubOcean is doing. And if you aren't already sharing your data openly, this is a perfect time to start. Then secondly, next week during the UN Ocean Conference, we will be launching a new initiative that we call the Ocean Matcher. And this is in many ways a Tinder for the ocean, where we will be matchmaking philanthropic funding with the great research projects and hopefully solutions projects out there. Using artificial intelligence, we will be sorting out what are the most promising solutions that exist out there and get all the philanthropists in the world, ideally, to find relevant projects that they see matching with their priorities, and through that, making sure that these solutions scale. So that's just a short snapshot of what RevOcean is doing. And of course, we hope to be working with many of you to really scale the solutions the ocean so desperately needs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nina. And I'm so looking forward to seeing science turning into actions, and I'm so happy that we share that goal. So now I will invite John back to the stage, together with Monica Wilhelmsen from the Tom Wilhelmsen Foundation, and Ole Wroldsen, who is head of the ocean technology at Entr, development at Entr, the consultancy arm of Aker Solutions. So please give them all a round of applause. So in this panel, we will dive into the big question on how do we get the finance for the bold, innovative, and untraditional research feats like these that we already touched upon. How can they be financed? And I will start with you, Monica.
Yes.
You are a member of the board of shipowner Tom Wilhelmsen's foundation, and you've been so since 2020. And this is a foundation that bears your name and was funded by your grandfather. And it's a known foundation in Norway, but not necessarily known to everybody. So would you please tell us a little bit about foundation first?
Well, the foundation was started by my grandfather in 1965, so we're actually having an anniversary this year. And initially, it was focused more into the cultural world, to the dance and the opera world. However, the foundation has evolved with the world, and we are now also there where we're focusing on environment, and naturally for us, the ocean is where we would like to give back. So that's where we're now.
When you Google foundations in Norway that actually does support environmental issues, you come up as number one.
Well, that's fantastic.
So, but tell me, you are also a funding father for the extraordinary project that I'm working with John on. So tell me a little bit, how do you reason when you go into something that is that controversial and that different?
It is a very good question, because it is quite new for us. Of course, we receive a lot of applications, and by a quick scan, we can kind of see where there is a quality or not. And when we dig a little bit deeper, we also take into consideration the lack of interest from governmental grants. Now, we're not politically motivated, but we again, we do sense that there is a lack of interest from the government. So there we also have the opportunity to look into projects that are unconventional, because the governments cannot do that. And the seabed curtain is an example for us, where we believe that we can help build awareness and maybe push forward a change.
Thank you. That is also very much appreciated. And I will now give the floor to Ole. And Ole is, as I said, and this is another disclaimer. We were colleagues in Aker Solutions when we both heard about the seabed curtain for the first time. But what's interesting for this conversation is, why is Aker Solutions and why are you spending time on this extraordinary again project?
Well, I think that is a good question. And it came out as a coincidence. We were invited by UArctic, by John, up to a seminar in Reykjavik. And that was the first time, 2 years ago, that was the first time I ever heard about the project. And with a project like this, we saw the slides here. You do one of those huge efforts of stopping, blocking ocean currents. It sounds impossible. It sounds too big. It sounds too complex. And there are so many complex contributions from different sciences that has to fit perfectly together. So once I saw this, I thought this is impossible. We cannot do that. It's a good idea, but it shouldn't be done. But then again, when you saw the slides and you saw this pile of gravel that should stop or block incoming hot water, well, what if we can reduce temperature, not by blocking it by a Chinese wall underneath the sea, but reducing it by something minor, an intervention that is not a huge effort, not throwing stones, but rather neatly engineering into the ocean. And I think good engineering is finding the fit for purpose, the right materials, the right size, the right outcome. And doing that, you need so much information that you need understanding the glaciologists from John's point of view. You need to understand the biology and the oceans from Nina's point of view. You need to understand the oceanology from the currents point of view and how that interacts building such a thing. So there's so much interesting about it. So I was thinking about it for a long, long time, and I said, okay, we can look into this.
Give it a try. Before we move further, if any of you have any questions at all, just let me know, because of course we would really like to hear from you as well. But then I'll go to Nina. You're a scientist yourself. How would you describe the current climate for science funding? I'm not only referring to Trump, but in general.
Well, I think the challenge is both for conservation efforts, but also for science. It's an uphill battle, and it has been for a long time. But we're seeing a lot of rollback of both scientific efforts, not just in the US, but also here at home. Yeah. The Institute of Marine Research will have to cut, I think, 140 million NOK to their budget. And we're seeing the same trends all over the world. There's an increasing competition for funding, and governments struggling to meet all of their different priorities. So I think that opens up the need for increasing global philanthropy to the same causes. And there is not a shortage of money in the world. There's a shortage of matching the funding with the right causes. And I think this project is an exemplification of the kind of matchmaking that we hope to be contributing to on board the Rev Ocean vessel. You have the science clearly laying out what the problem is and what a potential solution is. Then you're matching it with the technology experts that can potentially do something about the problem, and with the funders that are graciously contributing to it. So we just need to do this and multiply it by 1,000 for all the great projects that exist out there. But to your question, there is a rollback of public funding and spending for both of these issues, which makes the efforts of Wilhelmsen and other foundations and philanthropists worldwide so much more important.
Does anyone in the panel view it as realistic that the public funding part will come back anytime soon, or do we need to find other sources, like philanthropists? John?
Well, I think that there is actually a kind of a climate fatigue out there. And also, in terms of the history, people have gone for this paradigm which says, if scientists tell people bad things will happen, people will force the government to go in a better direction. But we've seen 50 years of that approach, and it's not worked terribly well. I think most people would agree. So what we would like to see is more what we call a compassionate harm reduction paradigm, which means that you take a view that the scientists, or indeed other people interested in the world, have to take, a hands-on approach, that they have to explore every avenue which might succeed, or at least succeed partly. Because there's not any magic bullet. We need a big range of things. And governments, to a large degree, are afraid of controversy. That if they somehow back something that's then painted in a way that looks like you're against decarbonizing the planet, which everybody agrees it must be done, that somehow the governments are doing a bad thing. That's their problem so far.
I have a question. Do we know enough about, of course, we do know enough about the consequences of CO2 in the atmosphere, but is the main gap between doing better, is that lack of knowledge, or is it, again, turning knowledge into actions? What I'm trying to get at is, can we keep on doing science and research in the way we are doing, observing, for a much longer period of time? Or do we need to start prioritizing within the science community?
I think we need both. I mean, there are still huge knowledge gaps, particularly in the ocean, that need to be filled. And unless you have the right knowledge, you're navigating in the dark. So you're not necessarily implementing the right solutions or putting your efforts in the right place. So with 90% of the ocean still yet to be explored, clearly there's a need for more science. At the same time, on some of the critical issues, whether it's climate change, overfishing, plastic pollution, there is plenty of knowledge out there to start doing the actual work. And plenty of fundable projects that can solve many of these small things or part of the puzzle. So we need to do both. Yeah. And I think it's probably the government's role to maintain the funding for, call it the basic science, and then philanthropists and corporates can increasingly contribute to more targeted science in specific areas of interest.
Because we haven't touched upon the commercial or the R&D activities going on in the companies. Of course, that is a major part. In Norway and Europe, it's about 40% of all research funding. So I have a question for Ola. When you walk through these halls, you see so many private companies working on more sustainable solutions for practically everything. Does a company like yours have funding available to do not what the customer is asking for, but what you understand that he should ask for or she should ask for in 3 years from now? Is that funding available?
I wouldn't say that we have a funding source that we could dig into and spend on projects like this. We have customers, of course, that are providing interest or trying to find solutions for their energy transitioning. But we need to do far more into the R&D ourselves before we can gain profit out of our projects. And we need to find projects with profit. We are a private company. So out of that, I would say not today, but I think we should establish a better mix between the funding and the profit.
So then we are left with a gap between what we know, what we want to do, what we should do, and that leaves us with you, Monica. Can you fill that gap? And how can you inspire other family offices to
yeah,
enter this space?
Oh, that's a huge question, actually. Well, we've in our foundation, we've just started to talk about collaborating with others to fill these gaps. Now, we haven't come that much further, actually, but so we're just in the making of maybe something will come out of it that we can all benefit from.
I think it was Nina that told me about the Norwegian billionaires. Is that where you're going?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of interesting that the few Norwegian billionaires that dare to stick their head out or try to do something to call it improve the state of the world, they receive a lot of scrutiny and criticism for their efforts. Maybe it's not good enough, it's not large enough, you should be doing something different. But Norway has more than 444 billionaires, and I think it's maybe 10, 15 of these that are trying to do something good. What about the remaining 430? You know, why aren't anyone challenging them? They've made their money on probably destructive industries because that's where the majority of the money is coming from, whether it's forestry or oil and gas or fisheries or aquaculture. You know, why aren't we increasingly both challenging them but also inspiring them to show them, okay, what are some of the solutions that you could be contributing to out there? And potentially, in the long run, these are also projects that could be make financial returns.
Exactly.
And I guess that's also why Aker Solutions is involved in these kind of projects, because it makes financial sense in the long run.
If we take a look at the US again, you have quite another tradition and culture for philanthropy. And even there, philanthropic funding for environmental issues is very low. It's like 1% or something. So it just increased over the last 10 years, I think, from 1% to 2%, which is not nothing. But there's a huge gap with also within the money actually available and what goes into climate research. And even more interestingly, taking climate research into actions. How can we inspire more people to actually step up to the plate? Do you have any ideas?
I think it's also a cultural issue here. Unfortunately, Norwegians are quite held back, and we don't want to stick our heads out. So maybe we should do something about that. Yeah.
I think it's really interesting that I've been to some events in Silicon Valley, and the kinds of guys that want to get involved in this are doing it because they somehow want to be seen to be saving the world. You know, it's a big PR thing for them. But from my perspective, I'd much rather Europeans and especially Nordic countries did this, because we have a much better record of doing moral actions than guys in Silicon Valley have, I think. So it would be fantastic if Europeans did step up more. They need to.
I think maybe part of the challenge has also been when we talk about environmental problems, climate change, and the ocean for that matter, it just seems so overwhelming and difficult to do something about it, that why would I waste my money putting it into something that's just going to go to hell anyway? You know, so I think we need to be much better at communicating with optimism, showing first and foremost why it's important and why you should care, and that goes for the ocean in particular, because that hasn't really been communicated that well. And then secondly, what the solutions actually are. Because if we're just talking about the problems and the destructive nature of things, then that's not providing enough cause to give.
Absolutely.
I agree. Could you repeat the phrase that you introduced about the compassionate part?
Yeah, the compassionate harm reduction.
Yeah.
So that you don't exclude any action, but you look at everything that's out there, like you Arctic are trying to do with the indigenous perspective. So you bring on different views onto any ideas and explore in some depth which ones. There's going to be maybe 10 that are worth pursuing. But you have to look at them all equally, not have a preconceived idea that we will exclude this idea because it's perceived to be bad by some people.
It was quite interesting to follow the last debate because we all agree that CO2 emissions, that's the problem. That's like number 1 to 100 on the list of challenges, and we know that. And then for the shipping industry, we're talking about the sea level rise. My reflection was, why is it so difficult to pronounce the sentence that includes the action part, not just the description? How come?
Well, I think it's this fear.
Yeah.
There are people that are so invested in decarbonization, they spent their entire careers on that they can't see anything else. They think of that as somehow devaluing what they've spent 30 years trying to do. It's almost a religious crusade against any other idea.
Before we round this up, Nina, you are the one with the one philanthropist that you have built this fantastic, incredible project together with. And that sounds like a dream to the rest of us, but I'm sure there's also a flip side. Can you just say a little bit about that?
At the moment, there haven't really been that many flip sides, to be honest, and hugely inspiring just that someone's willing to put their time and money and not give up on a project like this. Of course, if I was to say something, then it's you are in a way at a mercy of what the philanthropist or this individual wants to do.
Yeah.
So unlike government funding or public funding that could be more long-term or focused on a broader range of issues. This will be much more targeted. Personally, I think that's much better because then you're really going after something in a big way, and that can hopefully lead to positive change.
It's a fantastic thing, and it's very inspiring for all of us. And I'm sure that many of you, probably all of you, are working at companies with owners. Go home and inspire them to step up to the plate and be a part of the solutions. I want to give a big hand to the panel.
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining us today.